Welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Julie.
So just join me in taking a nice deep breath in and then exhaling. And knowing that we join together with this breath. We join together as we have come into this internet time of being together as we are all across this country in this recognition of oneness. We come together at the heart. And so in this way, I know that we are one. Many faces, but one power, one presence, one love. And so we have come together tonight to affirm this, to know this, not to make it true, because it is already so. So we just dive deeper into this recognition and we claim it for ourselves, knowing that it is the healing that comes through the revealing. And so I give thanks for our time together, the exploration, the discovery, and all that takes place this evening in our beings and in our hearts. I give thanks, I let this be, and so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Julie. That was beautiful. So here we are at our midweek pick-me-up. This ever-evolving place where we get to continually evolve our conversation, evolve how this thing unfolds. It is ours to do together, and I am so grateful that we get to do this thing together. We get to be here together. We get to nurture each other, because that fits in perfectly with what is our mission statement, which is to empower and nurture the unique expression of the divine that is each of us. And because I know that that is true, that each of us, unique in our own way, are here to nurture and to empower and to support each other, I ask you 3 questions. So here are the 3 questions. What have you done to nurture yourself this week? What have you done to nurture another this week? And what has another done to nurture you? I believe that it actually takes all 3 to create a fully spiritual community and existence in this world. It is our job to nurture ourselves, but it is also our job to nurture each other. And when we watch each other's back and we look out for each other and we look out for ourselves, when we fulfill these 3 things, then we have a healthy, thriving community. So I ask you to close your eyes, take a deep breath and relax. As I ask you these 3 questions, what have you done to nurture yourself this week? And take your time to answer that question. What have you done to nurture another this week? And take your time to answer that question. What has another done to nurture you this week? And take your time to answer that question. When you're ready, thank yourself for being nurturing to yourself and others, and for allowing others to nurture you. And open your eyes. So one of the ways in which we can nurture ourselves is by reminding ourselves of the destination that we are after, the wholeness, that we are after. And one of the ways we do that is by affirming this. So please say to yourself, as I say out loud, our identity prayer by Dr. Ernest Holmes, which is, I know that within myself there is that life which is perfect, complete, divine. It was never born and cannot die, for it lives and is God. Within myself is the wholeness, peace, poise, and power of life. This life is health. It is abundance. It is love. There is one life. It is the life of God. And this is my life now. For those who are joining us who do not have a webcam, and there are a couple of you out there, please feel free to use the chat to communicate to us. Audrey has a wonderful poem by Rilke to share with us.
This is from the Love Poems to God, the Book of Hours. I am too alone in the world, and not alone enough to make every minute holy. I am too tiny in this world, and not tiny enough just to lie before you like a thing, shrewd and secretive. I want my own will, and I want simply to be with my will as it goes toward action, and in the silent, sometimes hardly moving times when something is coming near, I want to be with those who know secret things, or else alone. I want to be a mirror for your whole body, and I never want to be blind or to be too old to hold up your heavy and swaying picture. I want to unfold. I don't want to stay folded anywhere, because where I'm folded, there I am alive. And I want my grasp of things true before you. I want to describe myself like a painting that I looked at closely for a long time, like a saying that I finally understood, like the picture I use every day, like the face of my mother, like a ship that took me safely through the wildest storm of all.
Beautiful. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you.
Pleasure.
That was gorgeous. So, what I wanted to talk about this tonight, and what I want to have a conversation about tonight, is what authenticity looks like. And the thing about this particular conversation is, I want to start out by letting you know I actually have a charge about this. That I personally struggle with the word authenticity. And so what I want to speak to you about is my own personal struggle around this. And where this struggle comes from is, at this point I have been guest speaker at about a little over 75 different churches. And one of the ways in which I am introduced at churches and at other types of functions is as the most authentic person whoever introducing me has ever met. And every time somebody introduces me that way, there's a part of me that goes, what does that mean? You know, what do they mean by that? How am I the most authentic person they ever met? And what I think they're really speaking to is that I am a tremendously spontaneous person. That my spontaneity is one of my ruling ways of being in the world. And so people call that authentic. But by being so spontaneous, things blurt out of my mouth that at times have hurt my relationships. At times have made me less than the person I want to be in that moment. That what is deeper for me is an authentic desire to have real, healing, beautiful relationships. That is actually deeper for me than my authenticity, than my spontaneousness. And so that when my spontaneity rules in a way that hurts a relationship, I'm actually not being so authentic because that's not what's really true for me. And so I find the use of the word almost repugnant in the sense that we tend to use that word for people in a way that doesn't speak to what looks to me like is true authenticity, which is all of us. All of us are doing everything we can to take what has meaning for us and bring it forth in our lives. The murderer, Hitler, the Dalai Lama, you, me, it doesn't matter. Where we are all coming from a true basis, is doing our best to bring what has meaning to us, whatever that meaning is, into creation, through us, into reality. And when we label something as being more authentic than something else, I find that dishonoring in the sense of that there is always something deeper going on for all of us. And I believe that what is at the core of each and every one of us is our desire to be loving and loved beings. And all that happens above that is all the different ways, the unique and myriad of ways in which people have tried to figure out how to have that, how to have this miraculous life. And some do it by being very controlling about their thoughts. Others do it by being tremendously spontaneous. But personally, I don't find to be one more authentic than the other. That's my personal opinion on the matter, and that's what I bring forth this evening. I was at a workshop on Saturday, run by our spiritual leader of the Center for Spiritual Movement, Centers for Spiritual Living Movement, Dr. Ken Gordon, and he was running an exercise at one point of talking about form, and how if we focus our prayers, our treatment work on form instead of the underlying consciousness, we wind up doing all the work and get burned out. That when we allow the divine within us and work on focusing our prayer and our consciousness, form takes care of itself. And he said that there's always some level of consciousness going on that needs to be addressed in whatever form we have focused on. And so, being a very spontaneous person, when he asked for a volunteer, my hand shot up, and he called on me. And so he said, okay, so what form are you focused on? And I said, well, my virtual Center for Spiritual Living. He said, well, why do you want that? And I said, because I want to have positive impact in the world. And he goes, well, why do you want positive impact in the world? And then the next thing that came out of my mouth, I had no idea was coming, and caught me so off guard, and everybody in the room, that it took me quite a long time to recover from it. When he asked me why I wanted to be a positive impact in the world, what shot out of my mouth was, because as a kid, I was made to feel that I was shit. I had no idea that was coming. And if I did have an idea that was coming, it would have been something I would have been happy to share in private. But sharing something like that in public was a tremendously difficult moment for me. And so Dr. Ken, being as beautiful a man as he is, asked next, well, what would it take for you to feel whole and complete, loved and loving right here and now, whether your center is successful or not. And because I was still reeling from what I had just said, I didn't have an answer for him. So he just went into treatment. And it was okay. I mean, in the end, it was a very beautiful thing. And that was on Saturday. And there's parts of me that are still integrating what came up for me about that. There are parts of me that are still putting together that something I thought was healed wasn't. But it didn't make me feel any more authentic if I had not said it. And I guess this is my point about this. If I had been able to have the self-control to have not said it, and yet have the awareness of it so I could deal with it in a more private way, that would have been my preference. And as far as I'm concerned, would have made me just as authentic. Because we all have to deal with whatever it is we deal with in our own way. There are people in this world who like dealing with things privately, and that's authentic for them. What's authentic for them is that they like to deal with things privately. What's authentic for some people is that they use what Carl Jung called the persona in a very strong manner to be in the world because it helps them in their way of being in the world. And I agree with what Bill is saying in the chat around last weekend, that what I shared was powerful for everybody there. But what I'm saying about this is whether I shared it or not does not make me more authentic than what anybody else and what they shared, because it is what is inside us and what we bring is just as authentic as what we bring out. And I think that there is a hidden danger in honoring authenticity to where it can push somebody to try to be something when they're actually already being authentic, being who they are. I want each of you to know that you are authentic, that your authenticness is complete and whole exactly the way it is, and that this is how I see it. In a moment, I'm going to open up the floor because this is a conversation for each of us to share what is authentic for us, what feels like authenticity to us. I just wanted to start out by saying that as far as I'm concerned, everyone is authentic, whole and complete, just the way they are. And it is in that beauty that each of us brings forth meaning in our lives exactly the way that is unique for each of us to do it. So who'd like to share about that first? Or about anything I said, or share about whatever you want to share? Julie.
Yes. Thank you for sharing, Cliff. That was inspirational, and makes me think more deeply about this word. I think lately it seems to be kind of a jargon type word and used maybe a little bit too loosely, but that's just opinion, and putting that aside, I guess I'm looking at authenticity a little deeper here and finding it's not really there is no real linear type of definition, because it feels like it's, on one hand, really being true to an inner calling, to our inner purpose, and allowing that to flow forth from us. And at the same time, it is also our difficulties that we have doing that, and the changes that have to occur, and what we have to let go of, and even the times that we fail and we make a mistake is all still a movement into that revealing of what our intention is, and it is a constant process in that way. And so there's the process, and then there's that wholeness. So I think it's really not just saying it's one thing. It's like opening into the paradox. it's a little bit of everything, and there's really no right or wrong in or through or around it. And I really got a lot of that from what you were speaking about tonight. Now we can just start calling authenticity one thing and kind of hold on to that when it's really much deeper than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. That was great. Thank you. And that's, yeah, it's like there are so many words that we use. The word safe is another word, but that's for next week. Next week, the word we're going to talk about is safe and what meanings people bring to that. But for this week, it's authenticity. And so, you know, but you're right. What you speak to in terms of the whole multi-layered thing and everything that goes on and how each of us thinks about it differently. Some think about it, some feel it. You know, some of us are very into our thinking process and getting deep within in our thinking, but others, it's a feeling process, right? Where we can't really think about it much. It's just simply how it feels. Is one more authentic than the other because we were given brains? So is it that we're not supposed to use them and it's only authentic if we feel it in our hearts? Kai asks, what's my definition of authenticity? My definition is bringing whatever has meaning to us to expressing whatever has meaning to us in the best way we can in any given moment. That's my definition, however that's expressed. We got somebody with their hand up. Who we got here?
Audrey.
Audrey.
Yes. I've been talking to a new friend this week that was talking about being congruent in his speech with how he was really feeling. Like it's become a really constant practice for him. Like, so I like that definition of authenticity. Is, you know, we can be the ones to judge authenticity, not somebody else. I mean, that brings up the other point. And I think it's important to have your own measure of your own authenticity. And, you know, because somebody saying that about somebody else is completely their perceptual, subjective take. Although I think because we are all connected and the emotional center of our brain feels one another, we can feel when somebody is congruent or not. We can feel when they're speaking from experience. And that's what I think of when you are referred to that way. I would say, you know, when you're speaking from experience, then it's completely congruent. There's no, the choice of your words is irrelevant. People feel drawn to that. So that's what I have.
Thanks. So then I would ask, what's the difference between authenticity and integrity, and is there a difference? Because when I think of congruency, I think more of integrity, which is really more objective for me personally. Like, for instance, my definition of integrity is when your thoughts, words, and actions match. Then you're congruent. So that's really easy for each of us to see. I mean, but again, that's because I have a different definition for authenticity than integrity, but maybe, Audrey, you don't. And that's okay. I'm just asking the question, you know, just throwing it out there.
Well, integrity seems to be, well, it does involve the heart, but for me, authenticity means coming from a place that there's no other way than to come from. It's that inevitable, like, I must express in this way. It's 99.9% a necessity in my beingness that I'm expressing. And I think within our day, we vary on our percentage from where we are from one moment to the next. But that's what, that inevitable place of coming from heart and mind, that to me is what it is.
Well, that's a great point. So you feel that there are times when you're not bringing forth whatever it is you need to bring forth in a particular moment, that there are percentages of the day that you're not doing that? What are you doing in those times?
I would just say there's different levels of connection where I'm more or less focused on my emotional connection to how I'm feeling. You know, I might be teaching a student and I might be holding space for them. Or,
So that's not authentic?
well, yeah, it depends what the focus is, I guess.
Because I've seen you, I mean, you are a brilliant teacher, and I find you very authentic as a teacher, holding space for others.
Maybe I'm taking a lot of floor time here, so I don't want to hog the floor, but I would say it's a fun dialogue we're having. And when if I'm teaching well, as you say, I'm in the flow. So perhaps authenticity is when the most of your bits are all conjoined in your expression. Like the most wholeness is the and surrender at the same time, because that's really important to me. I mean, I feel the most authentic when I'm surrendered, not when I'm engineering, you know, the next word or the next thought. But a lot of times I'm in a list. I got to get this done, that done. We have to rehearse this song. You know, those moments, you know, I guess it depends how deep a layer you're discussing.
That's exactly. Thank you. That's exactly right. You know, and that's what Julie said too. It depends on what layer we're looking at in a particular moment. Karen just asked, does authenticity align with the spirit, which always tends towards the good? Well, does that mean somebody who's really pissed off and acting out isn't acting out authentically? To my mind, that's, you know, somebody's upset or anger or what we might label as evil can be authentic for them. I mean, you know, on a particular level, because maybe that's the level that's the best they can do at that time. I know that when I'm upset, and like, you know, when my son was a teenager, I would get upset fairly often and find myself losing my temper and yelling and doing things that felt very, on one hand, incongruent with who I wanted to be, ultimately, but very authentic with how I was feeling in the moment. You know, I wasn't kidding. I wasn't lying to myself. I was pissed, right? And so I'm not so sure we can judge authenticity only by good, because I felt pretty authentic when I was letting my son know that he was out of line, or whatever it was, you know, as a teenager he was doing, because, you know, teenagers, they never do anything that's actually out of line, right? Who else wants to share? Cliff.
Hey, Cliff, this is Cliff. Can you hear me okay tonight?
I can, thank you.
Well, as I go through this life, I've wrestled with a lot of things, and I think authenticity is all about me understanding me and allowing somebody else be them, giving space to allow somebody else to be themselves without judgment. Because for me, I'm discovering how I am in this life. I'm learning what I'm supposed to be learning and understanding. And through that process, through that experience, I learned to expand my understanding of compassion and love and grace for other people. So as I walk this life and engage with people, I have things interact with me to help me learn those lessons. What that means is those are lessons for me. I have no clue what the next person, I have no clue what's going on with Audrey's life. All I can do is just be me and do the best I can. And when I work on that for myself, that's all I can be. So I cannot, as I engage with people, I have to be real mindful, because I have no idea what lessons they are supposed to be learning, or what they're supposed to grasp or understand, what they're supposed to experience. And then the next thing I look at is battle between authenticity and our society. How our society drives us to act a certain way, or grooms us to act a certain way, and how we struggle with trying to be our authentic self, or discover what our authentic self is. And many times we seek externally to find that answer, but yet we need to be able to find, and that's where this conversation between the mind and the heart and the gut comes involved. What really are you asking? And how many, or what you should be involved with and how you're supposed to be in this situation that's directly before you, and not so much what all your friends, all your companions, what your mom, your dad, your frog, your dog, I don't know, whatever else is telling you how to act. How do you find that peace? And the more that you center yourself, with myself especially, before you. So I go back to a word that, or a way you showed up with me long ago. You say you just do what's right before you. By doing that, it helps me discover more and more about who I am, who is my authentic self. And that's the discovery, that's the magic that I find in this life. And it's expanded my compassion for my fellow man.
Well, I'm all for expanding compassion. So that's great. The reason I think that this discussion becomes important is when it becomes uncompassionate, or somehow we look at somebody and we think that their reaction is fake, or we think that their reaction isn't authentic. Or, just as bad, we look at ourselves and think that we're not authentic because somehow we're not in the line, we're not totally congruent with our deepest selves. And I think that that's uncompassionate. That the thing that happens here in spiritual growth is it's just so easy to get to a place of beating ourselves up. And in the end, I know that that's what I'm speaking to here, because it's such an important thing to me. It's very important to me that we are kind to ourselves. Not just that we're kind to others, but that we're kind to ourselves. And when we call ourselves not being authentic, or not being, it's like the same thing as saying we're not being good enough. We're not good enough. And so in the end, what's really up here, and why this word becomes important, is if we use it as a weapon, not just against others, but against ourselves. And forget that no matter how we're behaving, whether I'm yelling at my teenage kid, or whether I'm sitting in meditation and being peaceful, I am in both moments whole and complete, and have no good reason to beat myself up. I am doing the best I can, and I know that each and every one of you are too. The biggest thing that happens on the spiritual path is that we beat ourselves up when we are not that peaceful perfection. Like something's wrong, and nothing's wrong. We are human. We are human doing the best we can. And I am here to tell you that the best thing to do with love is to use it like a salve. Use it like an ointment you would put on a wound, on yourself and on others. That this is the heart of nurturance, is when we think we've done something that we're not okay with, or we weren't at our best, that those are the moments we need to love ourselves the most. So I love that you use the word compassion. Yeah. Carol, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I loved what you just said. And I think there's a difference today too between transparency and authenticity. I think everybody is authentic in the sense that what you just said, everybody's doing the best that they can in knowing what they know about what they know. We're all being authentic as far as we know. And transparency comes in when we look at something in our lives and it no longer is congruent with who we say we want to be. And so then we become transparent and say, no, this is who I want to be. And if this is going on in my life, if that is somehow offensive to you, if you don't want to buy into this, if you, I'm a web designer and I have to be totally transparent with my clients and when I send them links, I'm telling them this is an affiliate link for me, and if you buy this web hosting, then I'll get a little cash back from this affiliate link. And that's being transparent, because I want to gain the trust of the people that I deal with, and I want to feel good about myself. I don't put the judgment on the authenticity, because just like you said, like I said earlier, we are as authentic as we know in our hearts and our minds and our souls to be. That can change throughout our lifetime, but that transparency and integrity comes when we see who we want to be and make everything after that, supporting that, who we want to be. Thanks.
That's great, Carol, and I agree with you. I gather you're using the words transparency and integrity as meaning the same thing, or do they have different meanings for you?
Well, they have different meanings, because you have to find your own integrity, and then out of that integrity comes the transparency on how you want to deal relationship to each person. Your integrity is born of remembering who you are, and then you share that with people you are in relationship with.
I love that. We are at different levels of transparency and integrity, and we're working on that. As long as we don't use it as a weapon to beat ourselves up. And I will, week after week, impress upon all of us, including myself, that what this is about is nurturing. And we stop nurturing and empowering the second we start beating ourselves up for not being good enough, not being in integrity enough, not being transparent enough. Because our authentic selves are showing up every minute doing the best they can, in my humble opinion of it. You have time for one more person to share. Who wants to step up? Cliff, you got something else?
No, I'm just nodding and agreeing with him. So that's what I do, is I just show up, and I'm learning a lot of compassion for myself. That's a challenge some days.
Yeah, it is a challenge.
When you when you give compassion to yourself, you start giving compassion to others, and just allowing them to discover things about themselves. And then all of a sudden the magic happens. I see that when I teach my yoga classes. All of a sudden the magic happens. The light turns on, and this person goes home, and they discover a little more of a richness about just allowing themselves to be themselves.
Thank you, Cliff. Michael.
Yeah, Cliff. I think the way I was holding the question of authenticity this week was really just kind of feeling into who I am understanding myself to be. When I first arrived, I'm on Cape Cod visiting and doing some work here, and when I first got here, I had this feeling of coming back to a place where I was when I was a kid, and then at different periods throughout my life, and I was kind of looking back, like, who am I now in relation to who I was then, and how do I feel? How much in alignment do I feel I am with who I am now, or who I'm becoming now, as opposed to different patterns or personas that I've had here with different people in the past. So, my thoughts about authenticity are, for me, to just really be able to get clear about what my core beliefs are and how I'm able to live those and think those throughout the days. So, I guess in a way there's no escaping authenticity. Everything is always authentic on some level. And in another way, you talked about Jung's concept of the persona and people having a strong presentation to accomplish a certain goal in public, so yeah, I think for me, my thoughts about authenticity are just like a willingness to really look at some of the, fears or darker disowned parts of myself that in bringing those back into awareness and then being able to accept and integrate those, that's my feeling of authenticity. Thanks.
So let's take a moment now to close our eyes. Nope, actually, now's the point for treatment. Julie, you're up.
All right. Okay, so I'll repeat what you said, Cliff. We'll just take a moment to go inside, close the eyes, and just give thanks for our time that we've spent exploring this great depth of authenticity and integrity and transparency and what all these words mean to our lives and who we are and how we learn to live from them. And so I just give thanks for this recognition that this is something that isn't necessarily decided in what we have said this evening, but is something that continually grows within our heart and our being as we continue to grow and expand as our expressions in this world. And so I know we grow and we have a relationship with what it means to be authentic, what it means to be and have integrity, and what it means to have transparency in our lives. And so I just affirm for all of us, knowing that we are all one with the divine and that we all flow with that love and light and wisdom of the infinite, always guiding us in that perfect way. We are brought to that perfect integrity, that perfect integration of all these concepts and feelings and movements of life that exist within our being. And so I just give thanks for all of this, and knowing that we do it passion. We do it with self-care and with self-love and gentleness. Knowing always that we have God supporting us, guiding us, and loving us. I give thanks for this. I now just let this be. And if you'll please all join me in saying, and so it is.